Okay, well, let's get straight into it then with the key updates for November 2024. So we'll start by talking about this battle between Threads, X, and Bluesky. Moving on to the death of hashtags. Is that going to happen? We shall see. I'm going to talk to you about a few new ads options happening across Meta today. And we'll also be concentrating quite a bit of time on LinkedIn because there has been some big developments on LinkedIn, particularly to do with video. We'll also have a look at the latest audience demographics on Facebook. We don't tend to talk about Facebook much here on the key updates each month, but we do have some stats to share with you that are pretty interesting, as well as some of their metrics that have been changing in the insights section of Meta Business Suite. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Instagram users, particularly here in the EU, and also a little bit about Threads and whether or not we are going to see some ads there pretty soon. As always, I've got a few great social media campaigns and content to share with you as well at the end. So let's get straight into it then. So who is winning the battle? Is it Threads, X, or Bluesky? I'm getting asked a lot about whether or not we need to be using all three of these platforms, what the latest figures are, and generally what your social media strategy should be. We've seen a lot of news about X recently because there's been a huge wave of high profile accounts making an exodus. This departure is tied into a change in the terms of service that happened on the 15th of November, so very recently. Basically, the updated policy will grant all of your tweets, photos, and videos that you've shared to X to be used to train the new AI bot, which Elon Musk is creating, which is called Grok. So you can opt out of this in your settings, but that might not matter legally. Essentially, anything that you are posting to X could potentially be used. And this is something that has angered a lot of the X community. So this has been the tipping point where actually a lot of large accounts it's been building for a long time, but a lot of large accounts have recently said, you know what, we're actually just going to leave Twitter or leave X entirely. And probably one of the most high profile of recent months is The Guardian. So, back on the 13th of November, The Guardian actually decided that they are no longer going to be posting from their main corporate account there. This is something they had been considering for a while, but they are now quoting the platform as being a toxic media platform. Their statement said that they are often seeing disturbing content promoted or found on the platform, including far right conspiracy theories and racism. The US presidential election campaign served only to underline what we've been considering for a long time, that X is a toxic media platform and that its owner, Elon Musk, has been able to influence to shape political discourse. So because of this, The Guardian has now decided that they're not going to be sharing their articles on X, and they are not going to be posting actively to their platform. Now, I have noticed that a number of their reporters, their journalists, are still using X for news gathering purposes and also just for their own kind of personal interests. But as an organization, they are no longer active there. So this is a pretty big move, and it's one that I think is going to influence a lot of other businesses and organizations to probably do the same. For a long time, many of us have seen that our engagement numbers on X have been dwindling. And underneath each post, you can see how many people have viewed the post. And that has been minimizing each month for many of our clients at Avocado Social. So that's the first thing that I would consider is how many people can you reach on X at the moment and what's your engagement like? Because if it is very small, then I would probably agree it's not worth being on there. So, what are the alternatives? Well, the biggest alternative is actually a Meta owned platform, Threads, which I'm sure you've heard of. The site has had more than 15 million signups in November alone, and it's not even the end of the month yet. So, they are seeing a lot of traffic come over straight from X. One of the things that they are doing a lot of at the moment on Threads is they are building the platform up to be a really good competitor to X. So there's a lot of new features that are coming out. They are launching more ways to really customize your experience in your feed. But the downside is it is another Meta-owned platform. And how much reliability do we want to give this one giant company? So the site has 275 million monthly active users at the moment, and that number is set to increase before the end of the year. There are some high profile British brands on Threads. So Greggs, Channel 4 and National Trust are some great examples of businesses who have really understood what Threads is about, which essentially is conversation, memes, voting via polls. A lot of it is humorous content, but that is becoming more serious. I'm definitely noticing more news events being covered on Threads. There are criticisms, however, with the algorithm because it doesn't necessarily always show you the news in real time. So they did receive quite a lot of negative press and attention around how they covered the US election. Content that was hours old was being shown at the top of people's feeds, which wasn't a great experience, particularly for following a news story. However, this week they have launched a new feature called custom feeds, which if you're a long-time Twitter user, you'll remember this as being Twitter lists, essentially. It's where you can follow a group of people who are talking about a specific subject. People can put together their own custom feeds of topics and choose the users that are going to be on those feeds, and then other people can follow those. And you can toggle between these. This is rolling out at the moment. So Adam Massari said that this is live, but a lot of people aren't seeing it yet. So if you pull down your feed on Threads to refresh, you might begin to see this option, although like I said, it is rolling out at the moment. So what about Bluesky? Bluesky's had a lot of media attention this week, and they've been able to sign up 1 million new followers in a 24-hour period. However, saying that, it is still a very small amount of people who are actually signed up and using the app compared to other platforms. They are at 20 million users globally. Now compare that to the 275 million of Threads. So it is still a very niche platform. But the reason it's had such a lot of attention in the news is because there are a huge amount of journalists and media accounts and also tech savvy people using the platform, and they are shouting about it with influence. The platform was actually started by a group of people at Twitter, but when Musk took over, they actually disbanded and went out as a separate company. One of the things that is quite a positive about Bluesky is that it's not owned by one central tech billionaire. It is a decentralized platform, meaning that it has lots of people moderating it and owning it from around the world. And so it's been able to propel itself to the top of the app download charts, which is why it's getting such a lot of attention at the moment. That doesn't necessarily mean that these are active users. However, The Guardian has been very active there. So they've essentially just moved all of their activity over to Bluesky. And you can see they're already at 221,000 followers. And so good to keep an eye on people like that. However, I haven't seen a huge amount of brands using Bluesky at all. I think if you're interested in using the app, as all social media platforms, I would suggest having a personal account there, getting to know the platform, getting to follow the nuances of how people are utilizing it first before you decide that your company needs to have a profile there. And it's certainly, like I said, a very niche place to be at the moment. There are no mass general consumers using the app. It does tend to be people who have a specific objective, whether that's influencing or whether that's media reporting, who are using the app at the moment. There's also a lot of lurkers who are just simply signing up to see what it's all about and might not necessarily be active users. One thing that you can have a look at is this tool, which was pointed out by Nicole Mezzasalma, who works for Baton Hall. And this tool is a plugin extension for Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and Firefox. It's called the Sky Follower Bridge, and it's a free tool that will allow you to migrate all of the people that you're following on X to Bluesky. So what that means is it will read who you're following on X. It will check automatically to see if they have Bluesky accounts, and if they do, it will put together the list for you. You can then go through those users and decide if you're going to follow them. So a really useful tool. I don't know how long it's going to be around for because X has previously blocked similar tools in the past. So this is something to jump on if you are thinking seriously about having a Bluesky profile. You can obviously choose to individually follow accounts or just follow everybody if you want to. But it is quite a nice way of transferring across to Bluesky quite quickly. So that's the Sky Follower Bridge extension, and that's available on Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and Firefox. Something I've been mulling over for 2025 is how relevant and important hashtags are actually going to be in terms of our strategy moving forward. Instagram has very much given a telling sign that the death of hashtags may be around the corner. They actually announced that on the 13th of December, hashtags that you follow on Instagram will no longer be visible in your feed, and you won't be able to follow more of them. So they are removing the capability of following a hashtag. This is something that's been happening for a while. They've noticed that people just aren't really following hashtags so much anymore. And I'm sure you've all noticed that people tend to use a lot less hashtags now than they ever have done before. For years, spammers have misused trending hashtags to promote irrelevant content. They've cluttered feeds for some time. And also, it's not really something you tend to see anymore, people putting more than 10 hashtags on a post. Whereas back in the day, I remember you used to try and post 20 to 30 on every single post. Algorithms now focus much more on understanding the content and the user behavior, reducing the need for hashtags to drive engagement. And actually, I was looking at some of my own stats the other day to see just how powerful hashtags are for my overall impressions on Instagram. And you can see that from an average post, I really don't tend to get many impressions at all based on the hashtags that I've posted underneath. So it is actually much more about what the context of your post is and the keywords which you use in your caption. That's not to say that I would abandon using hashtags entirely. Still worth putting 2 or 3 in there if you feel that that hasn't already been covered by the content in your caption yet. And the age-old question I always get asked is, can you still put them in your comments? Instagram would rather you put hashtags in the caption itself than utilizing the comments for this. So what's going to happen to hashtags? Well, I'd probably imagine that we'll move more towards how Threads handles hashtags, which is just limiting people to using one per post, and it doesn't even appear as a hashtag. So once you add the hashtag symbol to Threads, it becomes a hyperlinked word, which still enables you to talk about things and give it an overall context, and to tag in content underneath one umbrella for an event purposes, for example. But I think there's far less importance to use hashtags as a way to generally get in front of more people. Let's now talk about one of the new options that we've seen in the Meta Ads dashboard. So for those of you that do Meta advertising regularly, you'll notice that there is a lot of new features being integrated into that ads dashboard, and a lot of these are AI powered. This is really to help improve the overall performance of ads across the Meta platforms. And what the AI is able to do is really improve the quality of the content in which people are using. Something that they've added just this week and are rolling out is called flexible media. And this is designed to optimize your ad delivery by leveraging predictive algorithms to anticipate how users are going to respond. It basically looks at maximizing your ad performance by delivering the stories or the images or the videos that you're running as ads across different placements when it's likely to improve performance. So if you've been using manual placements where you actually select one by one, this will enable you to actually show your ad in other places which you haven't selected if Meta thinks it's actually going to improve that performance. So it's quite a clever option here and is removing more of the work around having to continually check in and optimize on your results. So I, for one, am a fan of this, but I'm yet to test it out. So I will certainly be reporting back. And if you've got any questions about that, feel free to ask. Moving on to LinkedIn, we've definitely seen a huge amount of new features which are coming out to do with LinkedIn video. And LinkedIn video is getting a lot of attention at the moment because recently they have been massively optimizing vertical video on the feeds. LinkedIn actually brought out some fresh best practices recently, and they are now saying you should be shooting vertically for LinkedIn. So this is the first time we've actually heard LinkedIn saying you need to be shooting vertically. So I think that's a really interesting move. So it's that 9:16 aspect ratio that they want to see in the feed. They're also recommending that you keep videos under 2 minutes, but even shorter than that is better, and to cut out any dead space. Dead space is where you sort of go, or you have pauses between what you're saying. I'm terrible at it, but luckily with clever editing, you can make sure that the video is as snappy as possible. Also, writing a strong caption is so important. And actually, they are suggesting a minimum of 50 words, but I've certainly found that keeping your captions quite short and snappy, but looking for opportunities to tag other people and tag other businesses is a great way to maximize growth. You can see in the example there, the update, you can't read it, but you can see it's been very well formatted. So short sentences, new line breaks, emojis, they all work really well at hoping to get in more people's views on LinkedIn. We've also noticed, and this was actually a really interesting experiment that a marketing expert called Caroline Gergridge ran recently over a 90-day period. She was posting videos, vertical videos exclusively on LinkedIn. And you can see that they've just had a huge amount of impressions. So her most successful video saw over 774,000 impressions. And her video posts average around 250,000 views. So she was able to reach 3 times more people with video posts than text posts. And also she found that sharing these in the morning was the most successful time to share content. And I'm regularly hearing actually that pre 9 a.m. is actually a fantastic time to post to LinkedIn. Videos under 5 minutes on LinkedIn definitely drive the best engagement. And the other thing that she said works well, direct to camera approaches. So presenting directly to the camera is really, really important. So some really good best practices coming out there from LinkedIn. Let's have a look at some of the examples that we've seen recently on LinkedIn as well.
Guys come to work with me as a supermarket assistant at Waitrose. First off, I start by grabbing a handset, a printer and a headset, ready to head down to the shop floor, where I cover a 15-minute break on checkouts. I then head upstairs to grab some fresh backstock cages. I work these and get rid of all my rubbish. It's then time to pick some Deliveroo and Uber Eats orders. We get quite a lot of these at lunchtime. Just scanning the products and then popping them in the bags ready for the drivers to collect. We keep any high-value spirits upstairs in our stock room, so I went and found a whiskey that a customer was looking for. As you can see, very happy I actually found it. I then handed that over to the customer. Next was off sales. Here I am scanning any gaps. Obviously, the less gaps, the better. That means the products are available to our customers. Then it's lunchtime. After my break, I come back downstairs to do some reducing. On this day, I did the second reduction for all of fruit and veg and the first reduction for our food to go. Then, before it's time to go home, I pop a quick load through on the dishwasher.
Okay, so two different examples there, but both examples are very much EGC, which is a big trend we're set to see next year, employee generated content. So not UGC, but EGC. This is the new trend that's been sweeping LinkedIn this year, and we're set to see more of it in 2025. These videos are quite unusual for LinkedIn, I'm sure you'd agree, but both of them have been filmed by and feature employees of these brands. So this kind of content really gives much more of a humanized, less corporate look to these companies, and is seeing huge engagement on LinkedIn at the moment. So Waitrose and SEMrush are both brands who are fully embracing EGC, and we're set to see much, much more of this from other brands into 2025. So if you're thinking about creating more employee generated content, definitely something I would be considering is who your brand champions can be, whether you are needing to do some more training or write some strategies for specific people within your business, or whether you need to go down the route of beginning to select social media champions and kind of training them up from scratch. If you follow SEMrush on the right there, you'll notice that Chris has become a little bit of a legend in social media, and he features in a lot of the videos, which is one way of doing it, where you have one main kind of brand ambassador, as it were, or employee ambassador. Or Waitrose take a completely different approach, where they actually use a huge host of content from all different supermarkets and all different employees across the country. Taking a look at a couple of other examples, I won't show these ones in full, but other ways that you might want to use vertical video on LinkedIn.
The moment this water balloon bursts.
We're going to figure this out using high-speed photography. There's no camera we have with the shutter fast enough to stop this action, and it would be impossible to take a picture at that exact moment. But we figured out a way.
We're going to turn on all the lights. I'm going to fire the camera so the shutter's going to open.
We're hanging the balloon right in front of the light. Here's the sound trigger. So when we pop the balloon with this pin, the sound trigger will hear it and fire the strobe, and that's what will stop the action. Oh, cool! You can see the pin right here, popping it, and then the skin just disappears, but the water still holds the shape of the balloon. Sound travels at a speed. It will capture the explosion of the water balloon a little sooner than the last time.
2, 3.
You can actually see the balloon tearing right here.
I feel like this is one of these things you can kind of do all day, and every single one is going to be different.
Everyone's going to be different.
That's totally different.
So this is the difference between 1/1200th of a second and 30,000th of a second.
Learning how to use strobes and learning how to really understand light is key to being a good studio photographer. And it's key to being a photographer in the field too.
I use this exact technique when I photograph a bat catching a moth.
Are there any other photo techniques you want to know about? Let us know in the comments.
So I actually love that video because it's really fascinating to watch, but also it has a number of fast edits, text on screen to keep you interested and engaged, lots of questions being asked, and then a great call to action at the end to encourage more comments. And they got, I think, 22 comments on that. Something that you might typically see on Instagram, but this is certainly filtering over to LinkedIn. And then the final example is the head of TED doing a direct call for entries for TED Talks, which I thought was a really interesting way to humanize the brand.
I'm excited to share with you this chance for you to give your own TED Talk.
So quite an interesting example to see there on LinkedIn. One of the other things that LinkedIn has recently launched as well is the new Build Your Voice Hub. So this is a new website that they've literally just launched. You can find it by Googling Build Your Voice Hub LinkedIn. And this is a centralized website packed with useful tools and guides, really for creators or anyone who's looking to be more active on LinkedIn, which definitely backs up the trend of employee generated content for next year. So LinkedIn are giving more comprehensive guides to how to use video and other best practice playbooks. They've also got direct links to support and feedback here. There's a calendar highlighting trending moments. There's also a fresh LinkedIn Content Fundamentals course, which is a basic level course, but worth having a look at. And there's details on an upcoming LinkedIn creator event. So it looks like they're going to be definitely doing more to encourage people to really craft and elevate their voices on the platform next year. Here's a couple of screenshots from the course, the LinkedIn Fundamentals course, and it actually annotates a lot of examples of how to create the best LinkedIn newsletter, LinkedIn post. So some really, really nice insights there. And you can see that they've used a few different types and styles of post to really show off how you can make the most out of the platform. So if you are thinking about building your voice or doing this for some of your colleagues next year, I would recommend going and checking out that free course and just skipping through and having a look at these kind of annotated PDFs within that, because they are quite useful. There's a lot of stuff we already know, like tagging other companies, tagging other people really helps. Having an engaging title or kind of first line or hook to start off your post. And also including a lot of imagery can really help as well, especially if it's behind the scenes unique imagery that people might not have seen before. Okay, those of us who boost on Instagram, there's some new types of boosted posts available. So for a while, it has been restricted for you to boost anything that has a sticker or a GIF on it. And now you can. So you can now boost posts which feature any Instagram GIF stickers or any general stickers. They're now eligible to be boosted, which is great news. If you want to boost a post which has music restrictions, you can boost these by swapping the song for an illegible one. So you can edit the post and swap out the song for one that is commercially available for boosting. So they are basically just expanding the amount of posts you can boost. A little word on boosted posts. Remember, these are generally meant to be used for boosting engagement. So if you want more likes, comments, shares, or saves, they're not great for conversions. So boosted posts shouldn't really be used for driving people to your website, for making sales or bookings. So do be aware that generally it's for brand building and engagement. So a little bit of an overview into Facebook's audience. I know we don't generally tend to talk about Facebook because I think a lot of people see it as a bit of a kind of old platform, or it's not that exciting. But actually, it might surprise you to see that who is using Facebook in 2024, it really is the 25 to 34-year-olds who are the largest demographic. After that, you can see it's people aged 55 plus who are the next in line. And then after that, it's 18 to 24. So this might surprise you because often people say, oh, you know, it's just grandparents on Facebook now, or it's just parents. But actually, they do still get a really good amount of people logging in who are 18 to 34-year-olds. It's slightly skewed towards male. So 56% male around the world. And you can see that the most active users are in the Asia Pacific areas. followed by Europe. So in the UK, it is still the #1 social media platform that people are using and logging into, which still might surprise you. But do bear in mind that people tend to use Facebook in a very different way than they used to maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So there's a lot of private activity or activity that happens in closed communities like Facebook groups or Messenger groups, rather than kind of public activity now as well. Facebook has been updating its metrics in the insights section as well. So you might remember this happening on Instagram back in August. They announced that instead of reach, they were switching to views as their primary metric. And this is now happening on Facebook as well. So they're in line with each other. Creators will now have a single distribution metric for all content types that's calculated the same way across Facebook and Instagram. They are switching watch time and average watch time to minutes viewed and average minutes viewed. So I think that's quite an interesting move that really does show how powerful video has become. I think minutes viewed is an easier metric to understand than watch time as well, because it just generally is quite easy to compare then to other platforms like YouTube. And of course, Meta does want to take more of that video attention away from platforms like YouTube and TikTok, and they are constantly battling it out for our views. So that should be rolling out to your professional dashboard on your Facebook page and also in the Meta Business Suite fairly soon. So keep an eye out for that. Something interesting that we spotted at Avocado Social that we thought was relevant to notice this month is that Instagram has overtaken Facebook in the EU in terms of active users. So generally speaking, across EU countries, Instagram now has 269.1 million monthly active users versus Facebook's 260 million. So there's not a huge amount in it. It is very close, but I thought that was quite interesting to see that this covered the period between April and September last year. This is this year's report, but looking at last year, both platforms had about the same user count, and you can see that in the blue there. So this year, Instagram has really managed to take over Facebook in terms of active users here in the EU. So that's really telling and shows us that perhaps Instagram will be the dominant platform for the years to come until Threads takes over, which is just my prediction anyway. So one of the questions that I'm hearing a lot is, are ads going to come to Threads? This is something that actually has been confirmed by the Instagram and Threads head, Adam Mosseri. He has confirmed that it's going to be essential to cover operational costs. And Mark Zuckerberg, back in 2023, shared that once Threads was on a clear path to 1 billion people, they would then look to monetize it. So given that Threads now has 275 million active users around the world, they're about a quarter of the way there. So many are suggesting that next year we probably will start to see some ads coming to Threads. So we shall see how that looks. I'd imagine that first of all, it would just be released as a placement, perhaps in the Meta Ads Manager. But we will see how that looks. And I certainly think that everyone kind of working at Meta behind Threads wants to make it a success, wants to make it get to 1 billion people. So I wouldn't be surprised if this did happen next year. Interestingly, according to The Verge, Bluesky's CEO has pledged not to introduce ads. So that's one of the ways in which Bluesky is already having a bit of an edge over Threads. So in a moment, I'm going to open up the Q&A if you want to ask me anything about anything that's been covered today in our update. But let's head on over to a little bit of fun. So we are a week away from Black Friday and Thanksgiving, but we have definitely seen a lot of activity around Black Friday happening already. I, for one, don't remember it being this early ever before, but I might be wrong. I've been served quite a lot of ads so far from the likes of people such as Grind and Trip, who I get targeted by a lot in Instagram, and they are giving early access to the Black Friday sale. They're using a code and they are promoting this via Instagram. And I shared this on my stories a couple of days ago. So I thought this was a nice post, you know, just showing what's going to be included in the sale, what the discount is, and making it feel quite exclusive with a code as well. So that also makes it easier to measure the success of the ads as well, based on how many people are utilizing that code. In other news, I thought this was a brilliant example. Currys using TikTok to promote their Black Friday sale. And this was using the trend that has been going around, which Currys kind of were one of the first people to jump on, around the Gen Z writing the marketing script. This time they've kind of done a response to that with the millennial boss writing the marketing script, and we at Avocado Social thought this was brilliant, so I thought I'd share it today.
Okay, so here at Currys we never did a thing. Our Black Friday price promise is epic. Hashtag humble brag, hashtag sorry not sorry. Catchphrase for another retailer will clap back on anything. Even air fryers, boy. No, because duh.
Can you do it properly, please?
We're done yet. Find any better price anywhere else and we'll toast my goats match it. Because YOLO. Cool beans. Pick sorry it didn't happen. We're spilling the tea on some of the most lit deals over here, so make sure to smash that subscribe button and RT. Hashtag selfie. We're about to break the internet with this one.
Hey, reckless tour, but I got expensive habits. Don't step in salt. I'm a real one, check my fabric. Hey, I said reckless.
Your doggo's gonna think this is lit. The struggle is real, said no one ever who went to Currys. So don't be super basic, roll to Currys and make sure the squad avoids all FOMO this Black Friday. Bye Felicia.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that one. And then also on the right here, a video I saw from Franco Manca, which made me giggle and also made me want to watch Love Actually.
It's Carol Singers.
Okay, so very, very simple. And I have seen that done before in previous years, but I just thought the lo-fi kind of filming and, you know, pen and paper just really fitted in with some of the trends that we're seeing with signage this year. And then finally, and this is the final one, this week, actually, I saw a co-founder and creative director, Claire Heaverside, write on her LinkedIn about a spelling mistake that Gails had made in Prestwich about a new store opening. They'd actually forgotten to put the T in their sign there. And she actually suggested on LinkedIn that perhaps Gail should give out some free teas once they opened as an apology, which received quite a lot of love on LinkedIn. There were 208 comments, 25 shares, and nearly 3,000 likes on that post. And Gail's replied. So they were listening and they said, what a great idea. We are going to do that. So they launched this, I think this morning. They just shared the story on Instagram of people have pressed which, we owe you a tea. So I thought this was a fantastic example of reactive marketing, and shows that you really do need to be listening in social media to any brand mentions, but also flexible to be offering these sorts of deals. So well done to Gails for turning that around so quickly. Maybe they did it on purpose, was the cynics' comments amongst us, but I actually think their response was fantastic.